My name is Ace. We have a very special guest with us today. But before we begin, please like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that we can continue to bring content like this to beauty pageant lovers all over the world. So I want to introduce Yollanda Chimbarami. She is our first guest from the Miss International pageant. So hello, Yolanda. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing so good. It's a beautiful Sunday. We're so happy to have you on the podcast. So let's begin. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your beauty pageant journey.
Sure. My name is Yolanda Elizabeth Chimbarami, proudly representing my beautiful country, Zimbabwe. I wear so many hats. I am an economist by profession, but besides that, I'm also a Disney voiceover artist. I am an actress, the founder of Help a Child Save a Nation, and above all, Miss International Zimbabwe. And when it comes to modeling, I actually started in primary school. So we had what we called Miss Teen Mod Primary School.
Mhm.
So when they introduced that for a semester at my primary school, I decided to give it a shot. It took a lot, because I was shy, timid, bullied. I always thought that I had these weird features because I was this tall, slim girl in school. So when they then introduced Miss Teen Mod Primary School, I was like, you know what? Why not? Let me just give it a try. What's the worst that could happen, really? So yeah, it was, gave it a shot, and then I won Miss Teen on primary school. So that really boosted my confidence. And then after that, I went on to high school, and there was Miss Harare Junior. So Harare is the capital city of Zimbabwe.
Mhm.
So I took part in that as well. Still a little bit shy, not really sure if I wanted to do it or not. But thankfully, my parents are the most supportive parents ever. So I went for it. I gave it a shot, and then I won Miss Area Junior. And then my confidence went from 50% to 200%. I was 16 years old by then, and there started, I was so motivated. So then I went on to try Miss Zimbabwe when I was 16. And it was such a wonderful experience. Unfortunately, I didn't get the crown, but trust me, I would not trade the experience and the exposure for anything.
Mhm.
And then I went on to become to be appointed Miss Intercontinental Zimbabwe 2022, and then won Miss Supranational Zimbabwe 2023. And here I am as Miss International Zimbabwe 2024.
That is what a journey to kind of from primary school to high school to kind of now. I know you said there was a lot of, you're a beauty queen, but there were a lot of facets that you mentioned as well. Actress, economist. You seem very well rounded. And so all these pieces kind of fit together. And so is it important for you to kind of, not just be a beauty queen, but also like have these pieces that help define you further as a person?
Very much so, very much so. I think that what really contributed to who I am now is the background that I'm coming from, where my parents were very supportive. Mention anything that you want to be or that you want to do in this world, and they are your number one supporters. And you know what? Like everything kind of intertwines, it comes in together. You cannot be a beauty queen without brains. You
Mhm.
have to be a good speaker. You have to be a I don't want to say a good actress, but there's a percentage of that that comes along with the title as well. When you're on stage, when you're putting on a character, you're showing people the other side of you, you're putting
Mhm.
yourself in uncomfortable positions. So everything just comes in and blends in together. And with Help a Child Save a Nation too, that's where the economist part really comes into play.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And could you tell us more about that initiative? So, help save a child or help save
Mhm.
a nation. I think you're a panelist at the United Nations for this initiative. Could you tell us more about it and why it's important to you?
Sure. So Help a Child Save a Nation was founded in 2013 by myself and my best friend. Then we were still high school kids. We didn't have any reliable source of income, but we knew that we wanted to go out in the community and help. And since we had access to, because at that time I was in junior council, and then my friend was in junior parliament, so that meant that we had access to companies, individuals, or bigger platforms. So what we would do is mobilize resources, mobilize funds for whatever campaigns that we would run. So during that time, at some point, we ran what we called the My Pads campaign, where we went to schools in the most remote areas of Zimbabwe and taught the girls about hygiene, etiquette, deportment, and also gave them the sanitary wear. And then we also had a My Shoes campaign where we would donate shoes every winter. And then we also had a candlelight memorial where we would commemorate and celebrate all the kids that died of HIV and AIDS below the age of 5. But when COVID 19 hit in 2019 and 2020, I noticed that there was a huge dropout in schools for kids that are currently in primary school and in high school, especially in Zimbabwe. I remember coming across an article that says roughly 840,000 children dropped out of school during COVID. And I could only imagine what my grandmother, who currently lives in the village, what she's going through with her grandkids. They are still in university in Canada. And I remember having a smooth transition from in person learning to online learning. Everything was via Zoom, via emails. You'd get your assignments, you'd hand them in. But also, I couldn't stop thinking what my grandmother in the village was going through. She barely have WhatsApp. I know some schools were utilizing WhatsApp. She barely has Zoom. She barely even has airtime to even call me or call her kids. So could only imagine what that transition was like for all the kids that are in our rural communities. So what we started doing as Help a Child Save a Nation is we started identifying these families and children that were struggling to get back in school, and we started helping them to pay for their tuition fees. So as it stands, we are currently having this fund in 9 schools that are in the Mashonaland Central Province of Zimbabwe. So as right now, as we're speaking, we have a total of about 69 kids that we're paying school fees for every term, and also taking care of the educational needs, because apart from education, they also have to be healthy. They also have to make sure that they have uniforms. We have to make sure that they have quality learning too. So we're trying by all means to provide whatever we can, as the schools are in the most impoverished areas of our communities. So yeah, that's how Help a Child Save a Nation came to life, and that is the vision we're rallying behind. Hopefully, sooner or later, we'll be able to accommodate thousands of children under the scholarship fund, because there's so much need out there. You would be surprised.
That is, I think you speak on a very important point there that, there's not just one aspect that you're kind of helping with, right? There's the need
Mhm.
for, for accessible technology. There's a need for uniforms. There's a need for sanitation. There's a need for things that a lot of us take for granted. And
Yeah,
this kind of initiative that you have, it doesn't just focus on education, right? It focuses on all of the components that make, an education possible. And so it's so great to hear that, your work is helping these kids, who would otherwise, really struggle to kind of get an education, and then the resources to it. So it's really cool to hear that.
right.
I'm very touched by that, because I know that, like, I'm a first generation as well. Like, I was the first person in my family to go to college. And I know you mentioned that, the love and support of your parents are is one of the most important things. And in addition to that, you need resources as well. And so, I was lucky to have parents that loved and supported, and that just they wanted me to get my education. But I also had, access to resources, right? That these same types of resources that you're giving these kids, is really kind of changing their lives. And so, it really touches my heart to hear that, you're thinking about, how these kids can become educated. So I know you also mentioned kind of, we touched on the importance of family, and how that your parents would have done anything, that, you dreamed of. Can you tell me more about, you know, how important that was for you to have the support of your family to do all of these things?
You know what? So my dad is late now. May he so
Mm.
continue to rest in peace. buddy. He was my biggest supporter and my biggest fan. Those who know my dad and I know that we're besties, we're best friends. And I remember initially when I started off in the modeling industry, my mom was very skeptical about it because there's a lot that encompasses the girl child, especially in Africa and in Zimbabwe to be particular. So she was very skeptical about letting her baby girl out there in the world. So they made sure that they were there at every and any engagement. But also, I'm so thankful that they supported my journey because I am who I am because of them. It takes a village to raise a child, and I am a true testament of that. It's through their hard work and their dedication that Yolanda is here sitting in front of you. So it's so important. Parents and
Mhm.
families and communities come together to support each other.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, all right. Well, thank you for sharing kind of your past and what you're advocating for. I did want to touch more on the kind of Miss International system. So,
Mhm.
why was this system the right system for you, for your journey and for what you're advocating for? Why choose the Miss International system?
What drew me closer to the Miss International brand is their values and what they stand for. Miss International is known to be a very traditional pageant, and I absolutely love that about them. So many pageants have evolved with time to time, but Miss International has kept their values together, and that's what really drew me to this platform.
Mm, very cool. And I know Miss International is held usually in Japan. Are
Yeah.
you excited to go to Japan this fall?
All the days and the months, I definitely would. I cannot wait to set my foot in Japan. I'm so excited.
So great to
Yeah.
hear. Okay. All right. Have you had a chance to kind of meet some of the other girls, and what has that experience been like for you?
I mean, there are few of us. I think there's about 12 of us now. I've
Mhm.
had the opportunity to speak to the recently crowned Miss International UK. Sounds like a very lovely person. And I'm also looking forward to traveling to the UK soon. So hopefully we'll get to meet and start off a sisterhood something when I get there. So yeah, I can't wait to see other queens being crowned throughout the whole year. I mean, I think we have about 6 or 7 months up until the finale. So I know that a lot of the African queens as well, my African sisters, will be crowned. So I can't wait to meet each and every one of them. I know Ghana has a queen already, who I'm
Mhm.
excited to meet in Japan, or hopefully early. We'll see what the year has in store for us.
Very cool. We're so excited too, and we'd love to meet them too, and kind of have this kind of experience with them as well. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you, Lana. I feel like, me and my audience has gotten to kind of know you so much better. So we're going to move on to our next segment. And we call this our quick fire segment. And so
Okay.
we'll ask you some we'll ask you some questions, and you can only answer yes, no, and maybe. Okay?
Okay.
And then at the end, we'll choose, 3 or 4 questions that I would love to hear more about from you. So this is where you can add your context. You can kind of talk about why you think that way, so that we can kind of hear your voice through these questions. So you ready?
Ready.
Okay, let's begin. Do you believe everything happens for a reason?
Yes.
Have you ever skydived?
No. Love.
Can beauty pageants be a tool for social change?
Yes.
Can pageants still break stereotypes?
Yes.
Have you ever felt underestimated?
Yes.
Should social media determine popularity in pageantry?
No. Hmm.
Do you believe in second chances?
Yes.
Is it okay to fail?
Yes.
Would you represent your country again at another international pageant if given the chance?
No.
Interesting. That is interesting. Have you ever experienced culture shock outside of Zimbabwe?
Definitely. Yes.
Can a queen be both vulnerable and strong?
Yes.
Do you think women in pageants still face unrealistic expectations?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no,
Sorry.
please.
Just my nephew just walked in. But I'm still interviewing. I'll call you back. Okay. Just give me a few minutes. Please lock the door. Please close the door. Bye.
Adorable. No. See, this is how you know we're live. So anyone watching, this is how you know we're live and it's not scripted and things like that can happen. So all right. All right. All right. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. I think our last question was so let's repeat that. So do you think women in pageants still face unrealistic expectations?
Yes.
Should pageants remove the swimsuit competition?
Maybe.
Okay. Is confidence something you are born with?
No.
Oh. Would you consider joining politics one day?
No.
No, interesting. Okay. Have you ever gone completely offline for more than a week?
Yes.
Hmm. Do you believe the youth of Zimbabwe are ready to lead?
Yes.
Can fashion be a form of activism?
Yes.
Do you believe purpose is more important than the crown?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So those were our questions. Um, it's so funny. Say hi to your nephew after this for us. He's so funny.
I'm so sorry.
No,
No, because kids
please
will
don't
always be kids.
apologize.
Voice. So, guys, I have an interview, so you have to keep quiet. I'll come call you. He was in here complaining, Auntie, but call me back. I'm like, it's not time.
He's part of the youth that's going to lead Zimbabwe one day. I just know it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the other one was in the background. Oh my word. I'm so
No worries, no worries. I love that kind of like there's just some things that you can't plan out, and so those
right.
moments are so fun. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to hear about this question, and
Okay.
I think it's such a fun question for you. So, have you experienced? You said yes. So, have you experienced culture shock outside of Zimbabwe? Can you tell us, what that culture shock looked like for you, and where did you experience it?
Definitely. So I live between Zimbabwe and Canada. I moved to Canada in 2017, mostly for education, but I'm
Mhm.
working at the moment. So initially, when I moved there, Zimbabwe is a very cultural country. We don't usually address people by their first names. You always put Mr. and then you put a person's last name. So in moving to Canada, I remember the first job that I got, and the boss walked up to me and said, "Hi, I'm Ben." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Yolanda. Do you have a last name or something?" And he's like, "No, just call me back." Okay. But in Zimbabwe, like I can't call my mom by her first name. I can't even call my dad by his first name, or else they'll just kill you alive. So yeah.
Very funny, the honorifics. I do get that because I think a lot of different countries have like different um, in Japan they have like a very they have like a I would say more of a similar honorific system to Zimbabwe than to
Right,
Canada
right.
or the US where you have
Yeah.
to refer to people as their last name. And then once you kind of get to know them and you build a relationship, you can begin to call them by their first name. So
Yeah.
very funny. That's very funny. That would throw me for a loop too, because I'm like, wait, why are you calling me by my last name? I'm not my dad. That's what I would be. I'd be like, well, I'm not my dad.
I know the funny thing is when I come back to Zimbabwe, it's always a hard transition, hey?
Oh,
Because I'm used to calling people by their first name and then I come here, I'm like, oh, Miss, Mister.
yeah,
But I have to, be conscious of that and just remember that it's our culture. And we respect it like that.
100%.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Let's see. Um, I always love this question. I think this is like something I always ask, you know,
Mhm.
contestants when we go through this process. And you said yes to this, and so I want to know, you said yes to, have you ever felt underestimated? And I'm gonna elaborate. So I want you to tell me, when you felt underestimated and how you got over that, or if you got over that. Do you kind of still feel this thing today? So kind of multi-layered, but you know, tell us when you felt that way, and then tell us how you worked through it.
Okay, interesting. I have lots of stories to share, but
Ooh.
I'll pick on the specific one. So initially, when I auditioned for Super Strikers, which is a Disney animation, so it took me about a year to actually book just even a single role. I remember when I submitted the first time, and I went into the studio, did a recording, and
Mhm.
after that I did not get any feedback back. And then the second time they put out an audition, my agent submitted on my behalf. I still called me in studio, went
Mhm.
in, recorded, didn't get a call back. And then the third time, at this point I was just like, I'm so tired. Is the director not tired of seeing my face, you know? So I remember the third time I went to the studio, I just told myself that I'm just going for vibes. I'm just going to
Mm.
meet people that I've seen three times already. So I went into the studio. I still got to know,
Mhm.
and then the fourth time they sent in another audition, and then I submitted. At this point, to be honest with you, I didn't even practice because usually when you have an audition, you take the time to go through your voice notes, you do your vocal training, everything. Every
Mhm.
day in the morning, you have a routine that you kind of adhere to every morning and every night. You have to make sure that your voice sounds okay and all that. So the fourth time I got an audition, I told myself that, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. I'll just show up on studio, do whatever reading they want me to do. I mean, they have seen me three times already. What more do they want? And at that point, I remember I was broken deep inside
Mm.
because it's just, why do you keep calling me back if you're not going to give me a role? It's 12 months later, but you're having fun seeing me in studio. But anyways, I just told myself that, you know what, the most important thing is to show up. At least I showed up. So then I went in the studio, did recording, and then the producer said, you know what, I'm going to give you a role. And then so he then gave me first character.
Wow.
And I cried. I had a few minutes to just cry in the studio.
Mhm.
And then after recording the first character, he was like, I love your voice. I'm going to give you a second voice. I'm going to give you a second character. And I said, it took you 12 months to love my voice, to love how I sound, you know? So, and
Yeah.
then he gave me a second character. And then after recording that second character, he was like, you know what? I'm going to give you a third character.
Uh-huh.
So we then started recording a third character. But then unfortunately, the second character and the third character had dialogue together at some point. So I couldn't keep recording that.
Mhm.
But I was so grateful to just record two voices. And just the fact that, that auditioning process, it took a whole year, to be honest. Like, first time I was like, what is it? Is it because I have a thick Zimbabwean accent? Is it because of my accent? And I did feel inferior at that point in time. I felt like I wasn't enough or I wasn't worthy. So even going into the studio the fourth time, like I said, I didn't even prepare anything. Just said I'm just going to, just so that they can see me again, see my face at least for the fourth time. But sometimes when God has a purpose and He has a way for you, everything will eventually work out. And in that point in time, I just learned that giving up is not an option. You might fail 5, 6 times. It's okay. Just show up when you need to show up. So yeah.
That's a great message. I Yeah, that's such a great message that you know,
Thank you.
you kept showing up, right? It wasn't like the first time, it wasn't the second time, it wasn't it took a year essentially for, the
That,
fruits of your labor to kind of show up. And
yeah.
yeah, what a way to show up. So very cool.
Yeah.
So I want to ask another question just because I think this is so cool. This ties
Yeah.
directly to your advocacy, but you said yes to this, and I'd love to hear more about this question.
Hmm.
So the question was, let me pull it up here because I know I saw it. Here we go. So you said yes to, do you believe the youth of Zimbabwe are ready to lead? So why do you believe that? Why did you say yes to this question?
So, to be honest, there's so much talent in Zimbabwe. We're small but mighty. We have youth that are taking over spaces, not only locally but also internationally. I mean, we have the likes of V Kativu, who's making global impact in the educational sector. She has been a United Nations ambassador to a WHO ambassador. She has done so much. We also have Anatoria, who's a singer and crossing international boundaries. So that just tells you that Zimbabwe is as a country with youth who are eager to go out and make an impact. And to be honest, the youth of Zimbabwe are ready to take up space. Already, the government has actually implemented programs that encompass the youth, where youth openly share what they think or how best they think we can change Zimbabwe and how best they think we can attain Vision 2030 as a country. So you see that the government is really trying to incorporate the youth in whatever change making policies that they are implementing. So applause to them for sure.
Mm. So this idea that it's this partnership, right? That I think you're talking about, right, with the government and the youth, and really kind of having that vision to see that whatever that 2030 plan looks like, the youth will be ready for it. So very
Yeah.
cool. So thank you. That was our yes, no, maybe section. I hope our viewers enjoyed it as much as I did. I think I've learned so much more about you, especially that voice acting role. I mean, I see it as like I work in the professional life, and I'm like, 3 times an interview. I'm like, how many more interviews do you need for me to, be to get this job? So I understand where you're coming from, right? Because you're like, really, I gotta go in again. I have to like go through another test. I have to. So very cool. Shows your determination, and showing up, as
So,
you said. All right.
thank you. You.
So very cool. So we'll move on to our next section, and so this is our Q&A section. I know you've been in pageants since you were very young, primary school, and you've kind of like grown up through this, grown up through the pageant system, whatever that pageant system was. And so I want to know, when it comes to kind of sharing your thoughts, speaking your mind, and that Q&A portion. How do you prepare for it? How do you kind of stand on stage, make sure you collect your thoughts? How do you do that?
So funny story. Whenever I have to go on stage or be in front of the camera, I literally wake up with a running stomach. And I always tell my friends that 5 minutes before the interview, I have to use the washroom. And that's how I go. So that's how I cope with anxiety. That's how I cope with nerves. And I think it's like we're only human. Everyone has a way of
Mhm.
coping one way or the other. But also just to tell myself and constantly remind myself that I am enough and I'm worth it. And to tell myself that when I go on stage, whatever answer that I'm going to give has to be impactful and has to be true, not only to me but to everybody. I think being authentic is so important. And when you're authentic, people see that and they can't run away from it. So yeah.
Mhm. That's funny. It just reminds me of, honestly, like in primary school, when they ask you to get up on stage and make a presentation, and you're like, I'm 11 years old. I don't know what to say to people. I'm like, I'm like 9. I want to color. Okay. All right. So many reviewers have seen this before, but this is kind of our questions. And so we'll ask a couple of questions. So these are kind of questions that, we've seen were asked of Miss International previously. And so
Okay.
if you were in stage, if you were, in person with us, we'd let you pick the question and all that stuff. But you're just going to have to trust me that we're picking these questions at random, Yolanda. So can you trust me, Yolanda?
I trust you my whole
Okay.
life.
All right. Okay. Okay. So our first question, as our viewers can see, I'm going through the questions. So here we go. Here's our first question. With
Okay.
more than 60 years of history, what do you think is the most significant contribution of the Miss International pageant, and why?
Thank you for the question. I strongly believe that over the last few years, a lot of pageants have evolved. But what I love most about Miss International is they stay true to themselves, their values, and what they believe in is what drew me to this platform. And to be honest, congratulations to the Miss International pageant for being true to yourselves. We really love that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we touched a little bit on this in our first part, and so it was like we're kind of
Yeah.
rehashing a question here. But what drew you to the kind of Miss International pageant is
Yeah.
that they're true to kind of the brand and the history of themselves. All
Yes.
right. Okay. So next question. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So, how do you balance confidence in public with humility when you're in front of others?
Oh, thank you for the question. Good question. I think being true to yourself and being authentic is the most beautiful skill that anyone can carry because when you're authentic, people see it and people feel it and they know it. And that's the most important thing.
Amazing. Okay. All right. This will be our last question. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What do you think is the biggest obstacle in achieving gender equality?
Very interesting question. I think that is lack of education. Just like what Nelson Mandela said, that education is the most powerful tool that one can use to change the world. And I believe that if we educate our generation and generations to come, we can definitely attain a good gender balanced society.
Yeah. And that ties directly to your advocacy as well. That kind of
Yeah.
um, education is the key. So very cool. All right. I think we have time for another question. So we'll pick one more out because I'm
Okay.
loving these questions. Okay. This is interesting. This is very tied. What is the most significant global development that has affected your generation's educational system?
That's such a lovely question. I think the most significant would be the transition to online learning. And we experienced that in 2019 when COVID-19 happened, where the whole world shifted. Sorry. Can
No
you hear me now?
worries. We can hear you. Yes.
Okay, there you go. Um, the COVID-19 pandemic definitely shifted and changed a lot of things educationally wise. I mean, if you look at it in Zimbabwe, a lot of communities really did struggle from in person learning to online learning, especially places and schools that are in the most impoverished communities of Zimbabwe, where some of the kids even had to have their lessons conducted via radio. But you can also imagine sometimes when you're having a lesson through a radio, you cannot really ask a teacher to repeat a certain concept if you don't understand it. And not all families actually have a radio. So there was a huge gap in the educational sector during a COVID-19 that happened in 2019.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah. I you know, I also let's see, I completed my graduate degree right I think it was
Hmm.
like a semester in the pandemic, and so I know how difficult it is, to not be in the classroom and to not be able to answer questions and to have those limitations. But I think it again, like as you were saying, it wouldn't
Right.
have been possible without technology, without things like Zoom and, as far away as I was from my classmates, I could get online and kind of interact with them. And I was so lucky to do so. So I definitely see technology as a way to kind of bridge that gap, especially when, the whole entire world shut down. So very cool there.
Right. Right.
Beautiful. Okay, so we'll move on to our final section. And this will be so as you've kind of grown up doing pageants, and kind of entering the Miss International system, what advice do you have, for anyone who is aspiring to become a beauty queen or entering pageants as a way, as a platform for themselves?
To not give up. Don't take failure as failure, but take it as a learning tool and as a stepping stone. I have failed a couple of times in our industry, but I'm so grateful for those moments, for those challenges, because they have sharpened the person I am today. You know, like I said, when I did Miss Zimbabwe 2017, I didn't get the crown, but to be honest, I walked out of boot camp with so much knowledge and skills that I'm still using today. So take everything as a learning tool, just like wine, you get finer and finer with time. So don't give up on your dreams. Go for
Go for
it.
it. I love that
Yeah.
message. And before we close out, is there anything you want to say to our audience that's watching from Contesera Pageantry? So, anything you want to share about yourselves, anything you want to share about yourself, social media, anything you want to tell our audience that so that we can root for you.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for the love and the support. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. Please keep supporting me until we get the crown, hopefully in November. And please continue to like, comment, share the content. And thank you to you guys as well for allowing me to have this platform to share my story. I truly, truly appreciate it. And to everybody out there who wants to follow me, I am very active on Instagram and on Facebook. It is at Yollanda Chimbarami. I will spell it YOLLANDACHIMBARAMI. And if you'd also love to follow the foundation, it is at Help a Child Save a Nation. At Help a Child Save a Nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Yolanda. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you. We'll link everything so that if our viewers, if they become new fans of you, they can definitely look you up, link up with you. So we're so happy to have you. And thank you again to our viewers. My name is Ace. Please like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications so that we can continue to bring content like this to beauty pageant lovers all over the world. Again, I'm Ace with Contesera Pageantry. This we live for this at Contesera Pageantry. With all my love, we hope to see you again. And thank you to our guest, Yolanda. Take care.